Welcome to Hush History, the most annoying man in Washington who saved the world. History isn't always written in blood and gold. Sometimes it's written in beige. Specifically, the beige hallway of the U.S. Department of Agriculture in 1953. Meet Edward. Edward was a man who enjoyed high-waisted trousers, light coffee, and the statistical diversity of screwworm populations in cattle. If you met Edward at a party, you'd find an excuse to stand by the punch bowl within 30 seconds. He spent his days watching flies. Not coal flies, not even Lord of the Flies flies, just insects. While the rest of the world was preoccupied with the Cold War and the fear of nuclear annihilation, Edward was preoccupied with how to stop flies from laying eggs in cows' ears. Look, screwworms were costing American farmers millions. It was a slow, gross, and incredibly uncinematic problem. Edward's job was to find a way to kill them. But Edward had a strange idea. He didn't want to use poison. He wanted to use love, or rather the lack thereof. He figured if he could sterilize the male flies, the population would be destroyed. For years, Edward sat in a basement calculating the exact number of flies needed to disrupt a biological cycle. He petitioned the government for a budget that was, really, insulting. People would avoid him in the break room because he would talk for 40 minutes about gamma-ray doses for pupae. This was the height of boring history, until 1955. Here's the thing about Edward. While everyone thought he was just a bug nerd, Edward was actually playing a different game. In the mid-1950s, the U.S. military was grappling with a huge secret: how to handle radioactive waste and track the biological signatures of Soviet experiments. The twist? Edward's Fly Project wasn't just about cows. The device Edward invented to sterilize flies was actually a front. He had discovered a way to use low-level radiation dispersion that the CIA was desperate to get their hands on. While the public watched as a plane dropped boxes of flies over Florida, the Department of Defense was using Edward's flight patterns and biological markers to map the air currents how they would wreak havoc in the event of a Soviet nuclear attack on U.S. soil. Edward wasn't just an insect expert. He was the man who mapped the survival routes for the entire eastern seaboard. He used the cover of Annoying Agriculture to conduct the largest atmospheric tracking study in human history without alerting any Soviet spies. Edward died with little fame. He never won a Nobel Prize. He remained in his beige office until his retirement, probably still complaining about the price of stamps. By 1966, the screwworm had been eradicated from the United States. Farmers were happy, but the secret maps that Edward drew, they remained secret long after the Berlin Wall fell. So the next time you see a man in a faded suit talking about something incredibly tedious, like the shelf life of grain or the migration of insects, listen carefully, because the most annoying people in history are usually the ones hiding the biggest secrets. After all, if you're going to hide a blueprint for surviving the end of the world, why don't you put it in a report about flies? I'm Hush History. Thanks for bothering with me.